Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Wall. Welcome again to the podcast, people. We do a sports show 1 till 4 on the platform. You got to download the app. We're a radio station, but not really a radio station. We do 9 hours of free programming every day. But the platform, New Zealand, download that app if you want to listen to the show live. 3 whole hours every afternoon. Celebrating sport is what we do. And then we condense it into this podcast. So we kind of give you like a highlights package on your way home, maybe from work, give you something to listen to other than all the dreary and dreadful news that suffocates us every day. Today, celebrating with a young man who you're going to meet for the first time called Julian David. Sport climbing. He qualified at the Oceania Champs on the weekend to go to the Paris Olympics next year and be our first representatives, along with Sarah Tetzlaff, the two of them. Now, he's a world junior champion, is Julian. And for the first time on the program, he can explain why he does this sport, what you have to be good at to be able to do this sport, and whether or not the New Zealand Olympic Committee are going to ratify and verify his achievements so he can go to Paris. As well as that, Eroni Clarke, former All Black, now ensconced with Tosor Fa'atasi. This is NZR's Pasifika advisory group. I don't praise New Zealand rugby very often, but this is just brilliant. This had to happen. A strategy to try and get more Polynesian men and women involved, not just on the field in rugby, but off the field in the coaching roles, administrative roles, all of that. The ATM podcast, Mark Watson joins us, episode 63. We got much to talk about with Watto, as always. And 9 years on from the death of Phillip Hughes in the Sheffield Shield. Remember at the time, if you can, 2014, that Australian cricket was so rocked and shocked by this, that the attitude of the players was going to change, that they were going to become a more gentler, more approachable, more easygoing kind of cricketing side. Has that really happened? Have Australian cricketers at all changed their attitudes since that? Bernie Coen was there at the time on the day when it happened. He joins us as well. There is still a lot of sport to talk. As always, we begin the show tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Whoop, whoop. Here we come, Australia, in 3 years' time. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
A lot of hype, a lot of mass media coverage, a lot of words being written and spoken about how fortunate we New Zealand cricket are, securing another glamorous Boxing Day cricket test versus Aussie at the MCG. And I do agree, to a point. It's a magnificent occasion and one we very rarely get to see, if at all. The last time was 4 years ago in 2019 when they towed us by 247 runs. The biggest and best moment for the Black Caps during that encounter was the opening over. Trent Bolt bowling Joe Burns, we're gonna dick 'em hard, and then it all turned really ugly and nasty and embarrassing, and just like the other two tests in that same series, we were utterly walloped, humiliated, ended up fielding on every single day of that match like we did every single day of the whole series, because they absolutely whacked us. 296 runs in Perth, 279 in Sydney. Prior to that thrashing, the previous MCG test for us was more than 3 decades previous in 1987 when Michael Whitney survived an absolute plum Danny Morrison LBW appeal in the final over, and we were robbed of what would have been an historic victory. Historic because it would have only ever been our 7th in total at that time against them, and we had to wait another 3 years for that 7th win. In fact, we've only ever beaten them 8 times out of the 60 tests we've played, the last one being in Hobart, 2011. We have a worse record against them in cricket than they do versus us in rugby. And seeing as they haven't held the Bledisloe Cup in over 20 years, that's really saying something. Yes, it is something good to look forward to. And that's also exactly what it is. Forward. For all the hoopla and mass media excess going on at the moment, let's not forget that the next MCG test versus them is 26-27. That's 3 years' time. 3 whole years. That's a hell of a lot of matches versus Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, the West Indies, Pakistan and Zimbabwe to plug the schedule with beforehand. 3 whole years. I mean, what else do you plan for in your life 3 years in advance? Not even the next Rugby World Cup is on the horizon yet, nor the FIFA World Cup, which in fact will happen before this does. So yes, it's something to look forward to, if not perhaps start planning for just yet. And the big reminder the big reminder, it is Australia over there. Let us not forget. A place we routinely get bum-shellacked, we get thrashed, we absolutely wear it. Big defeats, lots of hope, few wins, and much regret.
Devlin.
What do you want?
We want information. Information.
You won't get it.
The platform.
Sports news headlines before we go back to our man, Rahul, who's at work doing his real job.
Well, unlike us.
Unlike us, who sit here and knob off about sport for 3 hours every day. Call it a job.
Yeah. Not a huge amount going around. A few nice little stories. I'll start off with the NRL. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is going through the early stages of pre-season with the Warriors, of course returning to the NRL franchise for the 2024 NRL season. Despite his status as a former Dally M medal winner, Tuivasa-Sheck knows his place in the Warriors starting side next year is far from secure. He's spoken to the Daily Telegraph across the ditch and had this to say: "It's fair to say that I have to prove myself all over again. That's what I'm really excited about, because I do have to prove myself. That's one thing that me and Webby spoke about. He's encouraged me to come in and be that kid again. I've been absent for 2 years from this place, and last year, watching them from afar, they've been awesome." Super Rugby Opiki squads today have been announced. A number of teams to work through, but the biggest storyline being that is it the Hurricanes Pua or just Hurricanes Pua? Is there a the ahead of it?
Yeah, Hurricanes, Poa?
Hurricanes Pua?
I think it's Poa, yeah.
Poa have been dealt a major injury blow ahead of next year's Super Rugby Opiki. Black Ferns winger Aisha Litiinga has been ruled out of the entire 2024 competition, unable to recover from a serious knee injury in time for kickoff in March. Real shame for Aisha Litiinga. Litiinga, excuse me, I think I pronounced that wrong. Motorsport, Red Bull principal Christian Horner has stated after the F1 season-ending Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi that his team, winning 21 of 22 races in 2023, that there's still room for improvement next year. Gosh. Basketball news: the All Blacks road to qualifying for next...
groan, isn't it? Sorry, mate, that's been just past the bat for a second. So that's just a groan. God, another round of 21 wins out of 22.
Well, they just want to win all 23.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You'll be the only ones watching Red Bull by the time the next year rolls around, if that's the case.
The All Blacks road to qualifying for next year's Paris Olympics is littered with a number of NBA superstars, including Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Karl Anthony Towns. FIBA held the Olympic qualifying tournament draws for the final 4 spots left in the Paris Games this morning, with New Zealand drawn into the same event as Slovenia, Greece and the Dominican Republic. Yay. We actually, I think we lost to Greece at the FIBA World Cup earlier this year, and it was only a narrow defeat. We didn't lose by much. More NBA news. Now, this is a story that's been circulating for about a week. You may not know much about it, Marty, but I'm about to tell you. It's quite juicy. Josh Giddey, standing as one of the faces of breakfast cereal Weet-Bix, appears to have vanished, at least momentarily, following the allegations made against him in the United States. So he's no longer a Weet-Bix kid. There was posters going around of him bouncing the ball saying he's a Weet-Bix kid, not anymore in Australia. The NBA has confirmed it is investigating the matter, which revolves around an allegation that Josh Giddey has been involved in an inappropriate relationship with a minor. There's a lot of stuff that's circulated on social media over the last week or so showing him with a high school-aged girl, which, what appears to be a high school-aged girl. So, there's the investigation ongoing with that. Apart from that, for the time being, Martin, that is what is making you.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Julian David. He's only 18 years old and he has qualified for the Olympics in a brand new sport called sport climbing, speed climbing. He got this huge big wall. It's 45 metres and you've got to get to the top of it as quick as you possibly can. And it only takes a matter of seconds. Now he has qualified through the Oceania Champs. Is he going to get to go to the Olympics? We meet him for the very first time on the program today. Congratulations. But this is just such brilliant news. So yourself and Sarah Tetzlaff won your respective events at the Oceania qualifying tournament in Melbourne. And that means at the moment you're penciled in right to go to Paris.
Yep, so I've officially qualified. I'm yet to be selected by the NZ Olympic Committee, but we'll see what happens with that in the next month or so. And fingers crossed we'll be straight through the Olympics.
Okay, so rather than hoops to jump through, what walls do you have to climb then with them to get them to ratify this?
Basically, it's just a process of ensuring that we are able to actually get somewhere, because obviously they're not going to send us if we have no chance of getting anywhere in the Olympics. So we just pretty much have to prove that we actually have a chance and have medal potential.
And do you have a chance?
Well, I think with the way that things are, with speed especially, there's always an opportunity. You never rule out anybody, especially in a competition with this high, like mental game and pressure. Anything can happen. Currently, I am like 5.8 seconds in competition, and those top guys, Leonardo Vedrick from Indonesia, he's got the world record currently at 4.9 seconds, but with these 6 months of training, I reckon I can cut down about half a second, and then I'm definitely in contention, yeah.
Bloody 4.9, he's flying up the wall, mate.
Yeah. You're aware it's like a 15-metre high wall, and it's all like a standardised route?
Yep. 15 metres, I'm just
4.9.
visualising that at the moment. Okay, so 15 metres. So that's about what? That's about 4 or 5 stories, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty tall, eh?
Yeah, man. And so... how do you get to practice on this? Do you get to get a wall at home or here in New Zealand where you can put the climbing things in exactly the same places and so forth?
Yeah, so actually I'm quite lucky because my coach Rob, he actually built the wall back in 2019. It's based in Bay Oval by the cricket grounds there in Mount Maunganui, Tauranga.
Yep.
And that's where our wall is, only one in New Zealand. So pretty stoked that I have that, like literally 20 minutes away from where I am now.
How much training and practice do you do a day, a week?
When I'm in full swing, I train before school and after school. So like morning, afternoon, about an hour and a half a session, maybe 2 hours if it's a long one, almost every day of the week. So
You're still at school?
Well, just finished, but this season I was at school, yeah.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Well, I mean, can you make a professional career out of this?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I mean, obviously we have to see what happens to the Olympics, but I like the way that things are lining up. Obviously, uni is an option for me, and I'll definitely think about it. No guarantees with it yet, but we'll see.
Is there a pro circuit anywhere in the world?
Yeah, so the IFSC is the governing body of sport climbing. So that's the International Federation of Sport Climbing. They organise all of the what we call World Cups. So it's kind of like Formula One in that sense. We have like 6 World Cups a year all over the world. Yep. And we compete in those for world rankings and see who's the best. Yep.
You are the world youth champion, and you won that at Seoul in August, and so that's correct. Yeah, that's a hell of an achievement to start with. What is the difference between the youth climbers and I don't know whether I can call them the adult climbers or all the rest of the climbers? Yeah.
Yeah, the open category, that's just anybody over 16. I'd say, I'd say, a couple of years ago, I would have said, a huge difference. But now, all the youngsters are coming through and they're actually doing really well. Like a lot of the people that I was versing, actually, we all tend to do quite well in the open category. So there's not a huge difference. Like for me, the Oceania qualifier I just had, this competition in terms of like speed was easier for me to win, but it was harder in terms of pressure. Like that competition in Seoul was, it was harder for me to win that one.
Where does the pressure come from?
It's when you're going this fast up a 15-meter wall, the margin of error becomes so small, and to think that, one slip and you're gone, anything can happen. And when there's Olympics, especially on the line, it can really get to your head.
Can I ask you a dumb question, mate? Julian, have you ever fallen off, and how fearful is that?
I have fallen off, yeah. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes you make a huge mistake, I'd say slips happen more often, which can be just as detrimental, but obviously you get to keep climbing.
Yeah. You roped on, though? You actually roped on? Like you...
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
right.
we have an auto belay that it pulls up like 6 meters a second. So.
Yeah, it's not what they call that. What's that free climbing that they do up there?
Free soloing. Yeah, no, it's not that.
I've watched some. I mean, I think everyone has watched the Netflix on that. Man, that guy that does that is just outrageous, isn't he?
Yeah, Alex Arnold, he's a different breed.
He's a different breed, all right. So how did you get... This is Julian David with us, people, and he is qualified for the Paris Olympics next year alongside Sarah Tetzlaff, and good God, my fingers crossed, I hope that the NZOC has sense enough to say, yes, you got to go to this. What got you into this sport?
Sorry, what was that?
What got you into the sport? Why did you choose this?
So... climbing in general, it all started when I was a young lad at Tauranga Intermediate. I fell out of a tree. The teacher was like, "What are you doing? We have a wall, go climb it." So I decided to climb the wall instead, and then I entered Ames games and ended up coming third. And I was like, oh,
Great story.
I'm actually quite good at this. I may as well actually train it. So then I did, and that's where I met Rob at Rocktopia.
Yep.
Just decided to train it, met him, came under his wing, and he started coaching me. Obviously, he built the wall back in 2019, just when it got introduced to the Olympics. So basically, since then, I was training it, kind of for fun. And then back when I just turned 16, and I decided I wanted to do it seriously, and these past 2 years I've just been really training for the Olympic spot, and to finally have it is like a dream come true.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Tausoa Whaatasi, the Pasifika Advisory Group set up by New Zealand Rugby. This is, I think, one of the best things that New Zealand Rugby have done, certainly in the last few years, if not in the last decade. It is a really positive effort and attempt to get more Polynesian men and women involved in all aspects of rugby here in New Zealand, because, you just got to look at every single rugby side that you ever see, from kids to first 15s to provincial rugby, professional rugby, absolutely full of Pacific Island people, but not represented at all in the upper echelons of actually managing and running the sport. Why not? Eroni Clarke, former All Black, well, he is one of the main faces of the new advisory group. He joins us. As soon as I read and heard about this, I just thought, wow, my old self working in the media for as long as I have, my first reaction is about bloody time. But let's park that and let's just talk about what it is actually going to do for Pasifika Rugby, this Pasifika strategy.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Martin. It is. It was a wonderful celebration to be able to put a stake in the ground for Pacific peoples involved in rugby. And as you say, we've been involved in New Zealand rugby for a very long time, since the Solomon Brothers. There was, of course, our first, probably in a way, a superstar was really BG, and then, of course, then we saw the likes of Jonah and others that came after them, Inga Tuingamala, just to name a few. And so this strategy, what it really begins to aim to, it's about creating equitable opportunities for Pacific. It's about seeing more Pacific peoples involved in the non-playing areas, building the capacity of Pacific in places, particularly areas that, such as governance. I mean, those are really important. Where there's only 3% across the provincial union boards, and yet we're really seeing a huge contribution on the field. But certainly other areas like administration, like even looking at coaching, refereeing in the high performance area, and of course governance, coming back to governance again. I think that's really looking at trying to build the capacity of Pacific people in those. Not that that we don't have the capability. It's certainly areas that we probably haven't really thought about moving into. We're there to support our kids, but certainly moving into these other areas have been really important. Looking at also, I think what's really important is that if we want to create more better environments for Pacific to flourish, then really trying to create those in terms of lifting and enhancing the cultural responsiveness, if you like, of the levels of within the rugby community is important as well. So just thinking of some of those key things, that's why this strategy really was created, was to really look into those key areas to really make Pacific feel a lot more connected to rugby.
Ronnie, just in terms of the practicality of it, I was reading something the other day about the Premier League, and all of the clubs have signed a charter which is voluntary, and it's kind of like the quota system in South Africa. Just simply that, hey, by this year, we need to know that when you have applications for jobs, that, for example, 1 in every 5 or 1 in every 6 people has to be of this race or this ethnicity, or it's got to be divided between the sexes. Do we need to go that far?
Yeah, that's I hand over my heart. I wouldn't want to see rugby to go to that level in terms of having even legislation around that, in terms of having importance for those. I know that in other different codes, I think about even NFL, we had the great Jesse Tarpolu, who was our guest speaker, and within the NFL, there's the Rooney Rule that they have, seeing minority groups represented, particularly Afro-American, within coaching staff of the NFL. So you kind of think, do we within New Zealand? I would. I wouldn't want to see us to get to that level in terms of, I know we do in different other sectors, in health and education, but certainly with the sport that we love and that we contribute to, I think I would imagine that we would just do this because it's the right thing to do. And so, I think that while we can create better pathways, partner together with our wider rugby communities, that we can already begin to create those pathways for Pacific without having to go to any quota system. So, I'm to answer your question, Marty, I wouldn't want to go down that path. But certainly we want to partner and work together with our provincial unions. We want to work together with our super clubs, and also our clubs right at the heart level as well, to ensure that we do get representation at those levels.
When you look at rugby in New Zealand, and you just have to go and watch kids play or any of the clubs, and then it goes into the professional. I mean, the amount of Māori, the amount of Pasifika players that are actually playing. Why don't those numbers translate into the running of the game? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think certainly it's perhaps, that's what we do as Pacific communities. We're there to support our kids. We're there to support our children every time that we can. And it's an area that other than coaching, it's not a space that we actually really think about being involved in. We're certainly beginning to see numbers engaging in some areas, particularly at club level. We're seeing a lot more engagement around the boards and the committees. But even going higher level, we certainly have the capacity, I know that. But certainly it's really just promoting those areas to our communities a lot more. And I think as this strategy will really help to begin to do that. And so we're this, as I said, mentioned, it's 3%, even at New Zealand Rugby, at the staff here, 7% of us are Pacific. But we need more. And I think that's what really helps to create even better environments for not just for Pacific to flourish, but for all to flourish as well. So I think that's what I can see, and I think certainly the strategy will certainly help to move us towards that direction.
Ends it our Pasifika Engagement Manager. It's a great title. Eroni Clarke is with us, the former All Black. How important is it? I mean, just as a Palangi person, and I'm proudly so, and so I just I'm always fascinated by what it's like for you to see, yourself represented. So when you're a young man growing up, as you say, you mentioned BG and you mentioned Jonah, and then of course Inga. I mean, these guys just absolutely legendary players, iconic players. What does it mean? Because there's a great story that Mills told, and he said that Inga came down to Invercargill, and he said he hardly ever saw another Samoan face in Invercargill, and he just said it was just not only a breath of fresh air, it was inspiration, it was a revelation. And that. So what does it mean to you to see other people like yourself, other brown faces there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think back as a kid as well. I think Millsy's telling his story. The first time I watched an All Black game was the 75 All Black test at Eden Park, the waterlogged game.
Yeah, same. That was mine. Yeah.
He said, watch the number 11. And, the great BG to Brian Williams, he scored a couple of tries in that game, and I was captivated, and just really, that was the first time in reality that I had a dream that I want to play for the All Blacks. And why? Because I saw someone who looked like me, and certainly for me, and it's inspired me, and it's been part of my inspiration as a kid. And I think we want to use, for us as Pacific, it is an important thing to see our people in certain roles that we're inspired by. And so if we think about then having more of our Pacific peoples in these, as coaches, in refereeing, in administration, in governance, again, that's the same thing. We see role models that are in those spaces. And so I think that's what would inspire, I would imagine, more of our communities to be involved in this, particularly off-playing, the non-playing roles within rugby. And so, yeah, I think that's certainly a big part of the journey of Pacific, and
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute on each, and when the bell, we move quickly on to the next one. I want to talk about the Lakers versus the 76ers. Hey, you're in the game. You've pulled it back to 15, and Flynn's just texted and said, it's so good to see the Lakers losing, especially taking it up the 76er. Frank Reich, first NFL coach ever to be sacked in back-to-back seasons. Was that something to be proud of? I reckon every time you enter the record books in sports, it's something to be proud of. Sarah Tetzlaff and Julian David, the first New Zealand climbers to qualify for the Olympics in Paris, and hopefully they do get to go next year. Boxing Day test in Melbourne. Would you go? How excited are you, Lachlan? Given the fact of what happened last time, I will remind you about that. And the Pasifika Advisory Group. And we just spoke to Eroni Clarke about that. Let's kick it. Are you happy with this? Are you praiseworthy of New Zealand rugby for getting this off the ground? And let's hope that it isn't just eventually hamstrung and hand-tied by its own management gobbledygook and administrative excess, that practically it can cause or help implement real change. Because I'm not going to say it's a shame, but I just think that the underrepresentation is stark and it's real, Lachlan, isn't it?
Yes.
And as I said to Eroni there, that the Premier League, and I didn't realise that most of the clubs had signed this voluntary charter that basically says, hey, it's not positive discrimination. It's not, what was it called in South Africa?
Apartheid?
No, where they quotas, right? It's not
quotas. Yeah.
It's not that, but it's kind of in the same department store, a different floor. Essentially, what New Zealand rugby wants to see, and I think probably everyone who loves rugby wants to see, is just a hell of a lot more Polynesian people represented in every aspect of the sport, considering how many are represented on the field.
Yes, well, many represented on the field, and we can debate whether that's very fair with the amount of Samoan and Tongan and Fijian players we've had in our team, and then we don't seem to really give too much back to the islands.
Not a great deal, do we?
No. And not just us, though. Other countries around the world do that. England, France, as we talked about before. The goal of it is wonderful. And certain people who are in these positions of power, one being Eroni Clarke, who we just had on the show, to carry this out, faith in someone like him and assume that the others are like him. But at the same time, how do I describe this? I hope something does happen, or it does work out, or things do change so there is more Pacific representation. Because I could just see them throwing this out there and NZR as a whole. We're never actually really doing anything.
Yeah.
They did this with money and just invested into women's rugby.
$22 million. They've got 6 new managers creating pathways.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. Well, what is that? Is that actually helping the game? So it's a similar thing here. I absolutely am all for it. I'm like you, if we're utilising so many Pacifica countries in our Super Rugby and our national teams, our NPC teams and whatnot, there needs to be representation of them at an administrative level. Sorry, when I say them, that sounds like I'm othering. Sorry, but you know what I mean. So I just hope they pull it off.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
I hope they pull it off.
It is a great idea, and it is worth monitoring, worthwhile keeping an eye on.
We know with NZR, and this isn't the case with Eroni Clarke and whatnot, but we know with NZR and certain changes they've tried to make, the people in positions of power within NZR to do those are not capable at all.
No, wheels move very slowly, if at all. Your Lakers are just getting it up the chutney here from the 76ers. So what bet did you put on?
Oh, it's on the Pacers. I've already lost one, and another one I got to push, so I got my money back. So I got Tyrese Halliburton to get over 40.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Pacers playing the Trailblazers.
Can you hear that? Is that a cat?
It's a kid.
It's a kid.
There's a kid outside who is
screaming.
screaming.
Who's just screaming.
It's relentless.
Oh, yeah, we've got a kid's a best start below us.
Yeah, daycare below us, and so it's nice. We get to hear kids playing around outside and little music going off and whatnot.
What's going on there? Yeah, there's some sandpit politics going on at the moment there, Locke. There's a bit of sandpit.
Let me have a look.
Yeah, there's sandpit politics going on. I don't know whether you can hear that through the microphones, people. It's a gorgeous sound, actually. I love the kids playing all day.
Yeah.
The Lakers, mate. You must hate the Lakers, and you hate LeBron. You hate Bronny.
Because, look, we're missing 2 players, one of them being Jared Vanderbilt's one of our best defensive players, and a bit of a combo player with his athleticism, but also his size and his ability to guard probably the 4 and the 5. But we're pretty much healthy, and we're losing by 15 at halftime to the Sixers, who are a good team.
You were losing by 23 just before halftime.
It was 24 at one point.
Okay,
we're down by 24.
On the run then, all right.
The thing with the Lakers, I love my Lakers, but ever since I can trace it back to the signing,
this is like saying to Miles,
the signing of Andre Drummond it was like January, February of 2021. Halfway through the 2020-2021 season, Lakers were defending champions, and we signed Andre Drummond, promised him a starting role. Shouldn't have done that because the style that we played with having Marc Gasol as a big who could stretch the floor. Look, Andre Drummond can't do that, so then we brought him in, and it just kind of ruined our rotation. And then we bowed out in the playoffs in the first round. And then in the off season, LeBron makes the trade for Russell Westbrook, who I'm sorry is obsolete because he can't shoot the ball for goodness sake.
That no one cares about, mate.
Took up so much kit. This is a poorly constructed team. I don't actually know if Darvin Ham is that great a coach. I think he is good, but look, it's actually not a bad roster, and yet we do this. We go on little runs of wins of 2 or 3, and then we get just dicked in a game by 30 or something. I can't stand. I went through 6 years of this team finishing last in the West after being the greatest franchise in the NBA.
Commanders fan, mate, and then you got something to moan about, all right?
Well, my life's shorter than yours, so it feels like it's been going for longer, if that makes sense. So when we started winning again, I was like, this is great, and now we're average again. This is just...
Julian David on the program for the first time. How impressive is that young man?
Very, for someone who's born in 2005.
Yeah, crazy,
for
isn't it? Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
I can remember 2005 quite well. I was in school.
I can remember 2005. And you know what I remember about sport in 2005?
Lions tour.
I can remember that. I can remember a couple of things. I can remember England winning the Ashes.
Now, was that the one where they won it for the first time in a very, very
18
long
years,
time?
And your lot coming back from 3-0 down in the Champions League final.
AC Milan.
But
I don't remember that because I wasn't actually a Liverpool fan yet.
Here's a young man who has qualified for the Olympics next year. NZOC, you got to be in the top 16. I hope that's not a hard and fast rule here because, gee,
I don't think it is. It's not in black and white.
Snatching that dream from these two youngies.
To be fair, though, I kind of get why NZOC do it because they want to maximise medal chances.
Sure, I get
why
that
they
as well.
do it.
But this is a brand new sport in the Olympics, and so you got to, I think, just cut a little bit more slack here, extend a little bit. And he's also the world junior champ. So,
Hey, I tell you what, by the way, just quickly veer off. I'm well on my way to winning this bet. Anyway, back to Julian David. Sorry.
Listen to the interview. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. Highlights of it will be on the podcast this afternoon as well. Boxing Day test in Melbourne, 26-27.
Can't wait.
What happened last time? Let me remind you again what happened last time.
Bowling! Very first ball. Bolt strikes. It's taken 32 years. But New Zealand have another Boxing Day wicket at the MCG.
There you go, 32 years. Man, we dicked them in that first over. Yeah, and then after that, I think we lost by 280, 40,
We lost
90,
every test by like 240 or more runs.
So
that was actually our smallest defeat. It was like 246 or something.
Okay, so just remember this, people, when you're booking your tickets in 3 years' time to go to Melbourne, okay? This is Australia at home, and this is New Zealand playing Australia at home.
Cricket.
And we, if you remember last time, that was the greatest Black Caps side to ever leave these shores, wasn't it? It was just so full of talent. And then our
And
bowlers...
Australia was supposedly in a lower ebb of their Test cricket history.
All I remember is that all our bowlers broke down on the first day of every test and that we fielded every single day. It was an embarrassment.
I remember
it was
Neil
a
Wagner
total
was doing press-ups on the wicket in Perth and was like just bowling these nasty bounces at Matthew Wade and going, yeah, take that, Matthew. And then
they won that one by 296 runs, ladies and gentlemen, okay?
That'll be fun, though, because I remember, just quickly, I remember the last Boxing Day test when it was on. Huge amount of people I knew went over for the test. And even though we got absolutely smacked in that and lost the series 3-0.
Oh, good fun, though.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I go to Melbourne, sunny, hot that time of year. Between Christmas and New Year's, always a really weird time of year as well.
Can't have a bad time in Melbourne, people.
No,
you can't.
You can't.
Finally, I want to just tell you a little tale about Auckland Transport, who I've been battling with at the moment, right? This has got to be one of the most incompetent local government organisations ever. They have got so many fat staff, and I'm talking fat, I'm not talking physically, I'm just talking what do you people do? So I had the number plate stolen off my car before we went to France, so it would have been about 8 or 9 weeks ago, right? Someone came around and just took them off. So anyway, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I get a letter from Baycorp saying that, you've got a week to pay a $200 bill or else it doubles in price, you're going to go to court and everything. I was thinking, where the hell is this? And anyway, so on it was, you were parked outside this house on this street. And I thought, where the hell's that street? I've never been on that street before. I looked it up. It was a dead-end street. I've never bloody driven down that street before. So get onto their website. Thank God they actually, do put this on their website. I was thinking, so they had a photo of the car. Well, so it's my stolen number plates on a car parked illegally on a street that I've never been at. So what they've done is then they've tracked down my new number plates, didn't send me the notice. Baycorp sent the notice to where my new number plates are saying that you owe us $200 because of this car being parked here. Now, I've been battling them now for 2 weeks, right? This is correspondence going back and forth saying, no, I reported it stolen to the police. I was, you're a good, because you can't get new number plates unless you report your other one stolen, right? It's not my car. You can obviously see that it's a different colour, different make of car, and the number plate's been stolen. So I get a letter back from Auckland Transport yesterday saying, in this case, we will rescind this. But if it happens again, we will add this bill to the next one. It's a stolen number plate, you dickhead. It's not even a friggin' car, mate. Are people that thick these days in local government?
It's got to be an auto-generated reply or something.
But to the first person who wrote the ticket out and then decided to track me down and send it to me, Lachlan, do you not actually sit there and go, here, this number plate is X. Oh, I'm issuing a ticket for number plate Y. Surely that sounds a bit strange. Let me look that up.
You're assuming that people in these positions either, one, are smart, two, use their brains, or three, that kind of goes in connection. But I think if you're dumb, you can still try and use your brain. Or three, they actually do their job.
Initiative, just look at it. You're sending somebody a ticket for a number plate.
That is not a word
that
exists in these types of government departments at these levels of the government departments. Initiative is not a thing among those people.
Phillip Hughes tragically died on a cricket pitch, bounced in the head. No, it was an accident, but the incident propelled, you would have thought, big changes in Australian cricket, particularly the attitude of the players. Well, that was what was talked about at the time. There was a lot of tearful tributes. There's a lot of heartfelt words and ideas shared and said. But has it actually practically made any difference at all to Australian cricket? Bernie Coen from Channel 10 was there on the day at the time. Yesterday was the very sad occasion of the 9th anniversary of Phil Hughes' death. And at the time, if you can remember, the outpouring, the grief, and also the acknowledgement from all of the Australian cricketers that they wanted to change their mindset, their attitude and their behaviour. Do you really believe that that has happened in the last 9 years?
Look, I think probably more so in the last couple of years since that South Africa drama, which really blew up because of the captain not really telling everyone what went on. That wouldn't have been anywhere near as bad if he hadn't have gone into the press conference and spoken about that. But I think what did change that, it was interesting, was Phil Hughes, obviously, that summer, just going back on that, I remember the day quite vividly because that summer actually was Australian cricket had real problems in Shield cricket that for a few seasons where the pitches just weren't great for batsmen and they weren't scoring a lot of runs. And the selectors basically said this round of matches is going to be important in getting into the test side. Some thought that a Phil Hughes 100 would get him in the test side and keep him in there. And that day, I kind of think about Phil Hughes every time I go to the SCG or any time anyone's hitting the head. And I remember vividly that day walking past what was the control room at Channel 10 where all the records are coming in. And someone said to me, how long do you want this cricket to record for? Because it was a Shield game. It was I think it was one camera coverage or something at the time. Cricket Australia sent it through, and I actually made the remark, which I now regret making, but I will say at the time it was a flippant remark. I said, just keep recording it in case someone dies or something.
Oh, God.
I actually did say that. Yeah, and I said it flippantly, like meaning, well, if someone pulls a hammy, a bowler's out of the test series because we had a test match coming up. And then about an hour later or so is when I saw the incident. I actually I didn't see the delivery, but I saw him fall to the ground and immediately said to someone, something bad's happened at the SCG. Now, obviously, now we know later on, having been where he got hit, he died instantly. But I think after that, there was a feeling of bowlers of all around the world then realised that batsmen, it was just something that had not happened before. Had it been very close, Ewan Chatfield on his test debut, former New Zealand cricketer, got hit in the temple, swallowed his tongue on the field.
Yeah.
When he was hit by Peter Lever, and Lever says that he actually thought he killed him. And Ewan wasn't a good batsman, as we all know. Back then, they didn't have helmets. The bizarre thing about this was he had a helmet on, and it's just where he hit him. And I actually have cochlear implants, and I got hit in the ear by a cricket ball when I was 15, and I wasn't wearing a helmet. And I think back to that now, thinking, gee, how many people were hitting the head or the side of the head playing cricket over the years and missed that little area behind your neck that you could easily kill someone. But I think after that, bowlers, and we've seen it since, even now, we see them when they bowl a bouncer, if they hit someone, there's far greater concern now, I think, with bouncers for any bowler. I think the Australians pulled it back a bit, and I think a lot of bowlers around the world did in regards to, kind of bowl a bouncer, hit someone, you walk back and you don't say anything. You saw that on the great West Indies sides, they'd rattle batsmen. But I think after that, the Aussies kind of, I think they did dull it down a bit. I think they did tame it down a bit, but I think it got a bit out of control, and there was a bit of arrogance again. I don't think anyone. I mean, look, you've got to have some arrogance to be a good cricket side. But I think, it goes back to when Stephen Fleming was captain of New Zealand and they were getting sledged by Australia all the time, and he simply said, you need to have a response. Just don't let them sledge you all the time and not say anything. So some of the New Zealand cricketers came up with some very funny sledges back to the Aussies. But I think they, over time, I think cricket in general changed. I don't think the Aussies' attitude in regards to that killer instinct changed until probably South Africa, when I think they realised they were going a bit overboard with everything they did on the cricket field, although ball tampering happens all the time, and that wasn't the issue with that, really. It's been, I think that part of it was blown out of proportion because everyone did it, including the South African captain at the time, who had been busted twice for it. But yeah, it certainly changed cricket in a way I think everyone looks at bounces and things like that.
What about a guy like Simon O'Donnell and the attitude that he expressed on air a couple of weeks ago, where he was saying that New Zealanders are too soft and we shouldn't have picked up Kohli's bat and all of that kind of stuff, and too much sportsmanship and we should be more of a killer instinct. Does that kind of resonate in Australia, or does everyone just think, oh mate, that's just yesterday?
I don't. I think you've got to have some killer instinct. It's how far you go. I mean, to say that someone like Trent Boult is going to be a better bowler if he abuses the batsman, I don't know. I think it's up to the individual. I mean, there are some players that were ridiculously over the top in sledging, and there is a former Australian player that a West Indian, I won't name names, but a West Indian player, when I was talking to him and I finished afterwards, and this is a former player, made a comment to me about this player, had no idea how much he was hated by rival teams. Yeah. And I kind of went, whoa, and me and the cameraman just went, wow, I wish I had that on camera. But I think sledging, look, David Warner's tamed it down a bit. I think it's all right when players show an attitude and a bit of hunger. Like, I mean, Marcus Stoinis goes on when he gets wickets and tries to look like the Incredible Hulk and that. But I mean, I think it's natural to some people. I think maybe there will be a Kiwi player. I mean, you look at some of the top players, Kane Williamson, Richard Hadley. I mean, he didn't abuse people, but you certainly wouldn't have said Richard wasn't, didn't have any mongrel in him.
No, exactly.
But he was a good enough bowler. He didn't need to. I mean, I just think it's the personalities of some of the players. I mean, you wouldn't say Mitchell Stark's got a lot of mongrel in him as a bowler, but he gets fired up. But he's not like a lot of other fast bowlers. Josh Hazlewood doesn't either. I mean, if you look at the bowlers now, I think it's exaggerated a bit compared to what it used to be like. Because I think if you look at a lot of the Australian bowlers, they really don't. Sure, they get fired up and they get a wicket, but every quick guy does. But I wouldn't say New Zealand's too soft. I think they're an exceptionally good cricket side. I mean, India does carry on, and they're a good cricket side.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. ATM, the Mark Watson podcast, ladies and gentlemen, episode 63. We're talking Maguire, why he chose to coach Origin over the Kiwis, and could he have done both jobs? Phillip Hughes' death, and has Australian cricket changed at all as a result of that? And the Boxing Day Test. Lots of topics, as always, for Watto to get his teeth into. The Boxing Day Test. Look, I'm excited about this, but Watto, it's 3 years away. I've just been reading the saturation media coverage about it, thinking, hang on a second, what else do you plan for, you people? That is 3 years away. 3 years. I mean, there's actually another FIFA World Cup takes place before then. I mean, the Rugby World Cup's going to come around. That's actually not so long after that as well. And every time we go to Australia, the other thing is, get real, people. You know what happens over there. Last time we fielded every single day of every single test, and we lost them by about 1,000 runs each, mate.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's the pinnacle of test match cricket, isn't it? And I've always said this, that, I think that New Zealand cricket have always been really the great underachievers of New Zealand sport. They are our number 2 sport. They dominate the summer. And we've talked about having made some Cricket World Cup finals, and they've provided us some wonderful moments, but they still actually haven't done the ultimate. I said a couple of weeks ago that, I felt like the highlight for me with New Zealand cricket was the Test Series win over Australia in 1985. Now, we probably should have won the Boxing Day Test, 86, 87.
Yes.
Mike Whitney, we know the history around the umpiring that day, and Hadley and Danny Morrison, etc. And that was just, playing against 13 men. Look, what we actually have to do now is we've got 3 years. We need to treat this like our Olympic Games. That should be the focus for this New Zealand cricket team. This should be about what happens in 3 years from now. We've got to make sure when we go over there, we're not going over there a week before because we're playing England in December. We've got to make sure we go over there 3 weeks before. We've got to make sure we get plenty of matches in the build-up to it, play on similar types of wickets and similar type environments, play in Brisbane on bouncy wickets like you're going to get at the Gabba, then go and make sure that we're playing on wickets that the MCG is going to produce. And we actually need to go over there and win. And if we can win and we can beat Australia, we won't have to wait 8 years to get a return fixture. We'll get to every 2, every 3, every 4 years. And so we've been our worst enemy, haven't we? We've been given opportunities and we just simply haven't taken them. And the last Boxing Day test was case in point. We were woeful. But then, as I said, we had no real build-up. We had no real preparation for it. I think we did have England over here at the time. And so I think that's where we've got to shift. The Olympics for our cricket team should be the Boxing Day test. That's what we should be looking for. That should be the pinnacle. That should be that legacy moment for all of the players, Martin.
Speaking of cricket, 2014, yesterday, Phillip Hughes died 2 days after being hit in the head with a bouncer. And if you remember the outpouring, it was worldwide in terms of everyone who loved cricket. It was such a tragedy, such a sad event. But the Australian cricketers themselves milked this. And I will say that now because on reflection, I spent a lot of time yesterday going back, looking at all the tearful interviews with Michael Clarke and everyone else. We're going to change. We're not going to be like that anymore. And then just a couple of weeks ago, we get that buffhead Simon O'Donnell talking about, how soft the Black Caps were because they picked up Kohli's bat. You saw David Warner spitting and gobbing at one of the umpires, the sandpaper and everything. Has anything really changed with that team? I don't think it has it?
No, look, I think Michael Clarke, you heard the eulogy that he did, and I thought it was, it was a great eulogy, but it was incredibly disingenuous when you look back and reflect on it, Martin, and talking about the spirit of the game and, and there was an international outpouring. It was incredibly sad for Phillip Hughes. Nobody deserves to lose their life in that manner and such a wonderful cricketing protege. But yeah, you would have thought the message came out of it would be about celebration, would be about the spirit of the game. And that's what they talked about. But look, it's just in their DNA. You'll hear me say it a whole lot of times, but this is a country who, in all honesty, are just nasty by nature when it comes to cricket. We saw Sandpaper Gate. We saw the situation this year in the Ashes where, as I say, they are legally correct but so morally corrupt. They just cannot do anything with any sort of level of dignity, decorum. But, in saying that, they are successful, aren't they? They still find a way of winning, but they don't bring a lot of class to it. And so when you look back and go, have they lived up to what they've said? Have they really remembered Phillip Hughes, other than maybe milking it for their own selfish needs and trying to show some level of empathy? No, they haven't. And I think that's incredibly sad. And, don't say it if you don't mean it. And I'm not sure if anything will ever change in Australian cricket. I think it's inherent. I think it's, I think it's just generational, and it started with the Chappells in the 1970s. Michael Clarke continued it. We've got the current crop of players who continue to do it again. But, as I said, you look at likes of Chopper Reid in Australia. It doesn't surprise you that people like that are considered national heroes.
Madge Maguire chooses Origin over the Kiwis. Are you a bit surprised? And do we need a New Zealander coaching our National League team?
No, we don't need a New Zealander coaching our National League team because it's that situation of who. I think you can do both jobs. I mean, I don't blame him for wanting to take the State of Origin job. Let's not kid ourselves. State of Origin is the biggest product in rugby league. Let's not even pretend. I think that I think he can clearly do both jobs. I think New Zealand Rugby League have done this purely to save costs. We don't really have a great international calendar to look forward to in the year coming. And somewhat of a surprise, incredibly successful. I'm not really sure what the rationale from New Zealand Rugby League is, but just comes back to money, in my opinion. And we should have found a way to accommodate his needs. I just think it's another brick bat for New Zealand Rugby League, and I think just goes down a long line of just poor administration when it comes to rugby league as a whole in this country if you look back over the last 100 years.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, Download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.